Hi everyone, and welcome to the season finale of season 3 of Behind Your Eyes. Melissa is my guest today. So, hi Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Hi Suzanne, thank you for having me. I'm Melissa Amos and I'm a soul mentor. So I work with people all over the globe and help them understand who they are, their purpose here on earth, and if they've got any limitations or anything that might be holding them back from living a life that is led by soul.
And I always start with the same question. It's a sincere, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you. I'm doing very well.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's been a crazy time, and I think a lot is happening in the world. So it's always, especially as quite a spiritual person, I think you feel it maybe even a bit more.
Yeah, something I've learned through my spiritual journey is that I am quite energetically sensitive, and there's times, especially if you're starting your spiritual path, that you can even open up and be more sensitive, but we never really need to be victim to what's going on outside. There are always, in every moment, an opportunity to come back into our own power, to understand ourselves better, and to make the most of where we are and what we're doing.
It's still quite a delicate situation to be in, especially when you're maybe high sensitive and spiritual, to try to almost like block from what's going on outside of yourself and not let that energy affect you as much.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, one of the things that I do is I help people understand their own intuitive abilities, and I practice Reiki, and people are like, I want to be able to feel what's happening, and I want to be able to pick up this psychic information, and I want to know. So there's this real balance between how do we open up and be able to receive that information, but then also how do we come back into ourselves and understand that we can influence the energy outside as much as it can influence us. And it's a real practice, and it's something I'm still practicing because I need to practice it. But it's an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, because as you said, you help people discover and activate their defined path through the Akashic records. And could you tell a bit more about that?
Yes. So the Akashic records, for those that do not know, or maybe have heard the term, like, what is this? The Akashic records are a library, if you like, of information. It's a realm that holds everything that us as a soul has ever thought, said, done, been, had, desired, experienced. And it's all held in this realm called the Akashic realm, or the Akash. And each of us have these individual records which impact us and influence us, and that we activate and we draw upon, often without even knowing. I mean, I lived most of my life without even knowing what the Akashic records are. But once I discovered their power and their potency and their information, it helped me realize what I'm doing subconsciously or unconsciously, how I've been influenced by things that have happened to me that I may have long forgotten about, but also how I can utilize this realm and this energetic to help me become more of me.
And how do you teach that to others?
So there's a number of ways. I do a lot of coaching within the records. So I'm a spiritual counselor as one of my roles, and we'll often bring the Akashic records in. And if that's the case, then I'll work one-to-one with somebody, and we will open up the record, and we'll go in there with an intent or a purpose of, well, I found that this pattern is playing out in my life all the time. Or I found that I'm really drawn to this way of being, or into this healing modality, or I find that I'm going to want to step up, and then every time I step up I get ill, or I find that I want to become a healer, but I'm blocking my abilities. There's a for every issue we can look into the field and see if there's something in there that you know, might be influencing you, or might be stopping you, or maybe there's a memory of the past when you did this before, where perhaps you know, received a trauma, something happened, which is now saying to you, you know what, this isn't safe.
Right.
And that's not true. It was true then. It's not true now. But it was so, you know, traumatic that we are living it as a truth now, and we're just trying to protect ourselves. So we can go in and we can discover that either through like a reading, so more of a communication, or through a meditation, or through guidance. And I also run group programs as well, where I'll take a group into their records. And I've found often once you've been in, and once you've discovered some of the ways that you work in there, and some of the ways that the realm impresses you, so how you receive the information from that you can then often go back and start doing some own self-discovery.
Interesting. I love topics like that. But we will have a private discussion afterwards. But why is it especially important for people to live a more like authentic and solid life, and especially also for a good mental health?
Yeah, I've noticed something recently is that people are becoming more and more uncomfortable with the cycles that we have been led to believe is the right thing. You know, the whole go to school, graduate, get a job, get the mortgage, have the kids, like in whatever order it is, and you know, work your whole life for somebody else so that you can pay the bills for a house that you're never in, you know. And people seem to be waking up to this in the way that it's really uncomfortable. They're suddenly, you know, you're not satisfied, or you know, people are falling into anxiety, depression, you know, there's this general discomfort, and we are going around trying to relieve these symptoms of this. But for me, these symptoms are, the root of that isn't that there's a problem there. The root of that is that you're not living the life that you came here to live. And whilst in the past that may have been okay, and we might have been able to just kind of justify it and just deal with it, and that was just what was expected. Now I think as the consciousness raises in the world, and as we become more aware of the potential that we hold, that now this discomfort is actually pushing us for what? To help us step into who we are, to help us release the masks that we've been wearing for who knows how long.
Like literally and figuratively, actually.
Literally and figuratively, yes. So, you know, because we believe that we have to act a certain way and behave a certain way, and you know, follow the rules and like do all of this stuff, and sometimes they're just not aligned to us. And if we don't know who we are and what we are and how we are led to be, then how do we know if we're aligned?
Right.
And if we don't know that, then how can we live an aligned life?
Yeah.
But when we do, and we discover what it is that makes our hearts sing, what it is that, you know, brings us joy, what is it that brings that expansion and just that right level of discomfort, so that we can, you know, push through at that right level of challenge, you know, the things that you can really get your teeth into, and the things that you can do, that only you can uniquely do to influence others and make an impact on other people. Well, once you do that, life, for me anyway, seems to flow better.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that things aren't uncomfortable, and it doesn't mean that that
everything will be easy.
Yeah. Right. But it does mean that the center point, the calibration point, if you like, the bit there that you keep coming back to is more joyful and more peaceful and more satisfying and all of that stuff, which makes it easier to handle all of this.
Yes,
Here
exactly.
and there.
Yeah, because it's funny that you say that, because that was actually another question that I have is, like, do you feel the shift happening in awareness and people awakening and knowing that we're part of a whole instead of just individuals?
Yeah, it's become very apparent, especially in the last 2 years, that we are waking up to more of what we are. We're waking up to this, you know, we hear these spiritual concepts, right? That we are all one. And well, what does that even mean? Because I'm here and I'm me, and you're here and you're you, and we're having a conversation, and I'm not in your head and you're not in my head. And like, how are we all one? And what does that even mean? But there's something happening. It's like there's this vibrationary shift, which is maybe through the discomfort I spoke about earlier, is now waking us up to there's something more, there's something better. And the beauty of this day, you know, with the internet and with all the tools and all of these podcasts and all the books and all the healing modalities and all of these things that we have available to us, that now it's not just us sitting in our heads hoping that we find a group locally, maybe. Now we can literally go, oh, I had this experience. And what does it mean? And you go on and you think, oh my God, there's like 5,000 people who have also had a similar experience. Or you're just watching something or listening to a podcast like this, and you hear something and you go, yes, I feel that. And then you can delve into more and more information, which is accelerating this awakening and this progress that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a lot easier to find your group of people.
Yeah.
And as a spiritual counselor yourself, what has been your journey like on a mental health level?
So I was really lucky because as a child, my grandma was a hypnotherapist. And so from a really young age, I would experience the power of hypnotherapy. And she did other modalities like NLP and tapping. And so I understood at a young age that I didn't have to be victim to my thoughts and to my feelings and to everything that was going on around me. And I used to go there and she'd say, come on, Melissa, let's go over the Rainbow Bridge, for no reason. Like, not even let's fix this. It would just be, come, let's go and do this. And we'd have however long, half an hour. And I'd just be in this little beautiful world. And then there would be things come up, you know, at school when, you know, school's hard as a teenager. And again, you're trying to fit in and all of these programmings are starting to come in and there's all the pressures. And she helped me with exam stress and with revising and all the kind of stuff. And I saw really real tangible results. And so that led me on a quest that I was always very interested in, the mind-body connection, in psychology and philosophy. Like, that was my bag. That's what I loved to do. And then, you know, I went to university and then got the job and the house and the car and the husband, and did that. And I just kind of followed what I should have been following. And it was in about 2006, I discovered Reiki. 2007, I learned Reiki. And that was the real catalyst to changing how I perceive things. Because before then, I was quite scientific with, you know, the psychology and the NLP, even the NLP, that was quite kind of scientific. And then I go on this 2-day course, not really knowing what to expect and not even really having many expectations. And I remember placing my hands upon one of the other girls in the class and tangibly feeling this energy coursing through my hands. And I thought, well, this is interesting, because if I can do this just from a 2-day course, what else am I missing? What have I closed myself off to because it was too woo-woo, or just not, it was a bit weird? Because that was back in, you know, 2008. It's like a different world then. It was quite you don't meet Reiki practitioners every day around the corner. Like, it's kind of a bit, you know, different. And so, but then The Secret, that book, that was just really coming into mainstream then. And I started learning about the law of attraction and how energy works. And then I discovered these channeling texts, which were talking about the nature of reality. And like, there was just so much that I was like, wow, how did I get to this age and just not know? You know, and I was kind of still in my 20s then. I was like, oh, what sort of this? And, you know, but what I discovered, you asked about the mental health, is all of this stuff was feeding me, and it was building these foundations. And then suddenly, well, not suddenly, as I was going on, I started to realize where my limitations were, where my limiting beliefs were situated, and what that meant, and all this kind of shadow stuff that sat underneath it, that now I felt strong enough and hopeful enough that I could look at them and bring them to the surface and begin to heal them, and use all of these tools that I discovered. And from there, more recently, I've trained officially to be a spiritual counselor. And when you're doing any training like that, it brings up everything, because you're practicing. So stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm in a good place, things are good. I've, you know, I've kind of done a lot of the inner work, and then more comes up. It's great because it's freeing, and it helps you realize where you've had a skewed version of the world. And at some point, and I can't even tell you when this happened to me, but at some point it was like these philosophies of we are all one suddenly just seemed to make sense. And I was like, yeah, I get it.
It clicked.
Yeah, it was like, okay, yes, I'm me, and yes, you're you. But we're really not separate in the way that the world can often show us that we are.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like the world wants, or not exactly the world, but other people want to imprint on us. So yeah, we're definitely individuals, and we're different. Of course, we're different, but we're all energy. We're all energetic beings, so we're not that different after all. So yeah, it's always.
We're all made of the same stuff. We all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. And you think what we're made of. Yeah, we're made of the water. We're made of the air. We're made of the land.
Yeah,
we're made of the fire. There's only one source of that.
Yeah,
and it's interesting for me when you look at even the collective consciousness and how beliefs imprint into us, and how a whole society, a whole community can believe or experience the same thing, when actually it just started off as a figment of imagination there somewhere, or as a little cell, and we're all running on that program. And maybe that's partly why in these last 2 years, in the last 10 years, but more in the last 2 years, you're finding this acceleration of more and more people opening up to this world, this invisible world, this world of energy.
Yeah. And do you have like a favorite technique or tool when you're mentally struggling?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's two ways of looking at this. One is the preventative measures, which is what I endeavor to do every day. This is it's this awareness that we are all energy, and that we are responsible for ourselves and all of this. And meditation practices, when I work, if something comes up for me and I might do some work in my Akashic records, Reiki, or hands-on healing and crystals, if anything starts to come imbalanced in my body, that's where I go, hands-on. But then sometimes, you mentioned about everything that's going on, and as an energetically sensitive person, sometimes you can really take stuff on, and you can just start to feel this kind of heaviness coming around you, and that can manifest into different behaviors. You get angry, you get overwhelmed, like all this stuff. One of my favorite techniques for that quick, easy, done, is to do some like EFT tapping, and I just really delve into what it is I'm feeling, and I'm like, I am so mad right now, I wish everyone would go away, or whatever it is that's coming up, and like really go like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and I can't deny it, it's just there. It's not true, but that's what I'm feeling. And I love how tapping just seems to, for me, be very cathartic. It's like it gets it out my system, where I can go from feeling like real rage into just being at a level in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
powerful.
special.
Yeah.
And what would you advise others that are at the start of like a spiritual or a healing journey? Where would they start?
Where would they start? Start where you are. You always start with where you are. And, you know, if you can even bring some understanding to self, right? And just because there's so many teachings out there that tell you what you should and shouldn't think. Yeah. And this is just more of these programmings that are coming in my opinion. You start where you are and notice how you feel when you feel it, and what is causing or seemingly causing that feeling. Is it that every time somebody cuts you up in traffic, it throws you off the handle and that's too much? Or is it every time your partner leaves the dishes in the sink? Like, just notice where you are, notice what it is. And even before, say, starting a meditation practice, which can sometimes seem a bit daunting, just spend some time every day, some moments, just noticing what you're thinking about. It's like, okay, just this curiosity of, well, what is actually running in my head? Because we're listening to it all day, we're hearing it all day, we're not really listening to it, we're not really paying attention to it unless it's really shouting. So just notice where your brain wants to take you, what commentary you have going on in your head, what judgments you have about yourself, how
maybe if you recognize patterns as well.
Yeah, you write it down. Do that for 3 days, you'll suddenly be like, wow, look how I talk to myself. Look where my energy is. Because that for me is like the missing piece in a lot of this stuff. Like, I'm trying to reach enlightenment, I'm trying to get to this, and if you can't meet yourself where you are, how can you move on from that? So start where you are. And then listen to things like this, right? Just listen to a broad range of spiritual topics, of mental health. You know, I started it, like I said, I was quite scientific in that. If I'd have gone from where I was straight to the Akashic records, and it'd been like an avenue towards where I was, and it built up. So listen to things and something will spark your curiosity. So yes, I want to delve in more to that, and then read a book, or, you know, listen to something on it, and look at how you can begin to apply that into your life, one thing at a time. It
can be quite overwhelming when you see like, oh, there's so much topics, and oh, there's EFT, there's yoga, there's just a lot that you can you know, learn about. And so you have to also really find, I say always find what feels good for you, what matches with you. And if you say like, oh, I want to know a bit more about that, and go from there and expand from there. And with awareness, it always starts with awareness. You have to create awareness of like what's going on inside yourself.
Because what happens when you bring that awareness, there's so much that happens from that. You can then see how the outside world, if you've written it down and you've gone, okay, well, that's obvious, that's where my brain is when I'm not listening. That's the energy you're putting out there. You start to see how the world is reflecting that. You start to see how, hold on a minute, I've been thinking about that. And then this is actually quite a synchronicity, that I've seen this, or now I've heard this, or I've overheard this conversation, or this has come into my outside world. And then, like, from when I was discovering all of this, it was like, well, okay, I'm thinking this, and now I'm seeing it in the outside world. That's interesting. And then when I started learning about manifestation and well, so many different topics.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to go, well, maybe the world is a mirror, and maybe the world is reflecting what I am.
Yeah.
And maybe it's for me helping me understand what my inner world is doing, which is going to change the outer world, rather than try and do that impossible task of controlling and changing the outer world to change the inner world.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Changing the inner world isn't easy work, but it's a lot easier than trying to control every external factor so that you don't feel a certain way.
Yeah, and it's a lot more fulfilling.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, all of these techniques, and like you said, there's like hundreds. What's their job? Why do you do them anyway? It's so that you can be wherever you are and not be pushed and pulled in all of the different, or if you are pushed and pulled in all the different directions, is to come back to this kind of homeostasis point, this center point that aligns with you, that feels good for you, that is peace or calm or happiness or whatever it is. And we naturally, through even the course of an hour, can go through the whole spectrum of emotions. Even if you watch a movie, in 90 minutes, you could have gone from being fully exhilarated to depressed to angry to scared. Like, you can literally, and it's not even happening to you, it's like something on the end of a screen. And so and then we can turn the movie off, and we can often then go, okay, well, I can come back to a central point. I'm not saying to live life like it's a movie, because you want to be involved and you want to enjoy it and you want to feel it. But if you understand that everything that's going on around you and outside you is just happening, and the only thing really that you can have any form of influence over, true influence over, is how you take it and how you respond to it and how you use it and the choices you make once they've come into your world. You get good at that, life can literally throw anything at you and you're like, I'm good.
I think it's like the same with how you like observe your thoughts and your thought pattern. You say you create awareness, write them down, create awareness. But like when you meditate and you try to distance yourself a bit from your thoughts, you can observe them, and it's quite an interesting thing to do. And it's the same with your emotions. I mean, you can regulate your emotions and observe others without being too much affected by them.
It's one of the biggest changes for me that I've noticed, that I would, and I see this in my clients, that we start off and the world makes me angry. This makes me angry. They do this. It is making me. And you get triggered and you're looking over your Facebook feed and somebody says something and you're like, oh, I'm gonna tell them, I'm gonna give them my peace of mind. And this could be in seemingly positive and all of this stuff, but what I've noticed is that I'm less triggered. There's just less stuff out there that just makes me really mad. Some things do. Please don't think I'm some saint, because my kids will tell you 100% I'm not. But there's just less stuff, and that has come from this thing of, okay, is this mine? Is this mine? Probably not. Is this true? Probably not. It's someone's opinion. Is there something I can do about it? If yes, then do something about it. Is there something if I can't do anything about it, how can I take it and make something better of where I am? How can I just accept that this is what it is, because this is what it is? And how can I then say, okay, well, this happened, but is there something I can do? And you ask for that thought, because your thought will otherwise go into blame. It might blame you. Like your thoughts will just go where you tell them to go. So if you give your brain a job, if you go, okay, well, that's great, that's an interesting opinion, You don't agree with that opinion and you think your opinion's better than that one, that's great. Good for you. Is there something, bring me something that's going to help this, bring me something that I can know, bring me something that I can do that's going to bring more clarity or peace or understanding or forgiveness or whatever it is you feel you need.
Yeah, it's also a knowing that people respond from where they are, and it's not a personal thing. They bring their emotions, their beliefs, all the systems in their mind, they all bring that with them, and that's how they react to you. And most of the time it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Yeah. So that was interesting also for me to learn, because when people would get angry at me for no reason, it really was for no reason. Now I know.
Yeah.
So that's when you know that it shifts a lot.
It really does. And you just become less defensive. You can, and this is this, we are a one thing again. We become less like, we become more compassionate. And we say, okay, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that the words just bounce off you or whatever. And sometimes they do.
We're still human.
Exactly. And then this is when the other energy techniques come in, not the tapping, the Reiki, the energy hygiene, you know, keeping your energy clear, the understanding what it is that you're connecting to, the recharging, the revitalizing, all of these things that can just help you come back into that center point. And I think our job as humans here on the planet is an ascension path. I think somehow that we leave here better than when we began. And I don't mean better as in I'm a good do-gooder, but on a higher vibrationary level. Now, naturally we dip and we rise, but those experiences that we have, those experiences of that human life gives us, which aren't often easy, if somehow we can take them and not let them disenchant us, somehow we can take them and not let them be the thing that locks us into anger for the rest of our lives. If somehow we can take that and go, okay, this happens to me or for me or by me, now what can I do now? Where do we go from here so that I continue to make a positive impact on me and on the world around me?
And how can I grow from here?
How exactly? I think if we do that, we're fulfilling our purpose here.
Yeah. And I love having like a strong communication with the universe through meditation or muscle testing. And what is your favorite way to do that?
My favorite way for confirmation has got to be cards, working with cards. I have quite one or two card decks. I do love it. I love the imagery. I love the synchronicity. I love the depth behind it. And that is something that I always come back to. It's a real passion of mine. It's what I teach. However, the magic isn't in the cards. Like you said, the muscle testing. I love muscle testing because it's like I've got nothing outside of me apart from what I already know somehow, not in my head, but something what I know that's going to give me an answer. And my journey of discovery, especially over the last few years, has been, well, how do I receive the depth and the synchronicity that I get from a card without even having the card there, right? How I bring it into my body. And sometimes that is using the world as your tarot card, you know, you walking around and you say, oh, I'm working on this and what's on my path ahead. And then the world just starts to speak to you and talk to you. Yeah. And I love that because it just shows you this magic that's there and that's available that otherwise you're too busy searching for answers on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
When the universe is going, look at me, I'm over here.
I'm here, talk to me.
Yes. And that really lands into trust because often you get the most obscure things. Yeah, like contact this person, have a look at this, pick up this magazine. Walk that way and not that way. Go get ice cream. Like there's some really weird things and you think, I don't know how that answers my question, but if I do it, I wonder what happened. And then you go and get the ice cream And who's in front of you of the ice cream store is a book publisher that's just looking for the new author that's gonna write your book. Like, you just do not know until you trust, and you just keep, and you'll be caught every time.
Well, my last question is also always the same. When are you at your happiest?
When am I at my happiest? What's the definition of happiness? For me, happiness is not this fun. For me, happiness is this peace and this comfort and this contentment. And I always get that. It's after I have been doing client work, when I've been running group work, when I've been holding space. There's something there about being flooded with this energy of divinity and helping other people have these breakthroughs that, for me, just like lights me up. It's like everything just goes ping, 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 ping. And then I finish the session or the event and I'm like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for today. It was a joy talking to you.
Thank you, Suzanne.